Hey guys, welcome back to the Capital Mindset Show. Today we have a unique episode. This one's going to be more along the lines of personal finance in regards to college and student loans. So what we're going to do here is we're going to pick Austin's brain here, who he's gone through the ropes already in terms of the student loan, college experience, and he's going to tell us
mistakes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's going to kind of walk us through some of the things he had done differently, and things that if he could tell his younger self to do, he would do so now. So Austin, I think my first question is, what do you think about higher education, and do you think it's a necessity, or do you think it's, and if you do think if you don't think it's a necessity, do you think at least it's something that helps someone?
Yes. So basically any advice I would give someone potentially considering going to college is two things. Don't go because you feel like you're forced to go. And then secondly, if you decide to go, realize college is a tool. A lot of people, when they graduate high school, they're 18, young, want to get out there, want to get out of their parents' house, et cetera. I perfectly understand that. However, a lot of people treat college like a 4, 5, sometimes 6-year vacation where they're just partying, living it up and all this other kind of stuff. Well, colleges, Fabio, and you know this just as well as I, colleges can offer you so many opportunities if you know how to take advantage of those opportunities. But the only way you know really how to take advantage of those opportunities is if you know what you want to do. And the issue is I see so many people who don't know what they want to do, yet they feel like there's some weird forced idea that they have to go to college to be successful. So Fabio, I would probably say, for the most part, do what is right for you. If you know what you want to do, Fabio, if you know what you want to do, go to college, but realize college is a tool to be taken advantage of.
So from what I'm gathering from all that is, if you're not sure what your plan in life is, it's not necessarily a good idea to go spend a ton of money to figure out what it is you want to do. Right. But if you do know what you want to do and you're certain about it, that college can be a great tool to achieve that goal. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And it's especially prudent to note that, especially kind of on your former point that you just made, a lot of it is also opportunity cost as well. Because if you don't know what you want to do, yet you have this incredibly expensive institution telling you, oh, just come to us, like we'll show you what you want to do. The thing about finding what you want to do in life is it doesn't just fall onto your lap. There is a certain level of effort that you have to take, whereby you're seeking out opportunities, you're learning new things, you're experiencing new things. And then from there, you can then find what you want to do. So just to kind of take this as an aside right now, when I was 18, honestly, from until I was about 18 until 21, I had no idea what I wanted to do. But I had parents that told me, oh, college is very important. You have to go to college. You really have to make sure that you're going to college and getting that degree, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. My father actually recommended against me going to college. He had said, well, yeah, you shouldn't go yet until you're more mature, being completely honest. And, looking back on it, I wish I had listened to him.
And
so
I want to highlight for our audience, Austin used an interesting choice of words. He used the word opportunity cost. And why I'm going to highlight that is, a large part of this channel is to discuss about investing topics. And opportunity cost is often discussed in economics as sort of what an economy kind of judges between using resources for one thing or another. And the same thing in investing. If you decide to invest into something, that's an opportunity cost, or there's an implicit opportunity cost in that you could have invested that same capital in another investment. So those are always the things you're thinking about, because if I, for example, have a big position in stock A, but stock B over here is at a good value, then there is an implicit opportunity cost in holding stock A. Of course, opportunity cost is not realized cost, it's opportunity cost. So it's kind of like a subjective way of viewing what value is. And what Austin's kind of getting to this is, from what I'm gathering, that there is an implicit opportunity cost in making these mistakes early on in your life. I do hear a lot that if you're going to make mistakes, though, it's a good time to make it in your youth. And that kind of segues into, I think, another point that hits hard at home, and it's the student loans, right? So if you can make all these mistakes, you can just take all this loan, right? And well, not everyone, but some people are taking all these loans, and they're young, they can afford to make these mistakes. What do you think about that, Austin?
So I think that the idea of you're young and you can afford to make mistakes, it's flawed, Fabio. And here's why. You can afford, the key word here actually is afford to make mistakes. If you're taking out student loans that will put you in debt before you're even old enough to drink, that's not being able to affording to make these mistakes, which is exactly the point that I was making in my first point, where college is a tool. If you have to, and there are actually other ways that we're actually about to discuss to get enough funding to go to college. But if you have to take out student loans, you need to make sure that you have a game plan for how you get in and out of college in the fastest amount of time possible. You maximize your network and resources and everything the university has to offer, and you get yourself a job or you start a business of some kind,
Yeah.
in essence.
And yeah, and I would say obviously starting a business is either easier said than done, and
Yeah.
the internet is full of people saying, "Oh, just start a business. Oh, Shopify. Oh, Amazon drop." And then there's a lot of people who take advantage of that and create a bunch of services that are questionable at best in terms of
Mhm.
either their mission or their success. And when I say mission, I mean like their intended goal is either to maybe not help you per se. So I always see that there's a lot of employers today that even offer higher education opportunities if you work within these organizations. I mean,
Mhm.
if I was in a position where I personally could not afford to go to university, or didn't have the means to start something and produce my own income to then therefore afford university, there are plenty of other options, like such as I think Starbucks pays for. I mean, obviously the obstacle here is getting a job at Starbucks, but I think they do pay for higher education. I know Amazon does now. They've been advertising it all over the place now. I
Mhm.
think there's these advertisements I'm getting about nursing school, stuff like that. So all these are all different avenues of achieving like the same thing without burdening yourself financially. Now,
Well, yeah, and also, Fabio, there's also the
mm,
fact too that you can apply for pretty much any and all scholarships. Like I've seen
yeah,
scholarships online that may, like, literally this was one. I think I was about a sophomore in college when I saw this one, and it was like, write how you would survive a zombie apocalypse and potentially win something like $2,000 in like a scholarship. And like this is like the tier of like people that are almost willing to give out money in these forms of scholarships. So this also takes another level of effort, whereby you have to do the back work and figure out what scholarships are right for you, like where these scholarships are being offered, and then just apply for as many as possible. Because the last thing you really want to do is to get hit with a student loan with a variable interest rate, to be completely
mm,
honest. And Fabio, would you kind of define the difference between a variable versus a fixed interest rate, and the reason too why student loans typically tend to have higher interest rates than other types of loans?
yeah. So the reason why student loans, well, especially variable interest rate loans in general, can be very
Hmm.
dangerous is because their rates that are today are dependent on what the federal funds rate is at the end of the day. So if the federal funds rate increases, the interest rate on these loans will increase, and that can lead to a very precarious situation in which your debt obligations can begin to compound on themselves, and you might end up having to pay a lot more than you really thought. Now, student loans in particular are dangerous because you're not able to file bankruptcy and get rid of them. They follow you all
Which
the
is
way
known as
through.
defaulting on your loan. You're
Yeah,
not able to default on a student loan.
you can't. Yes,
Mhm.
because student loans, a lot of people in the past were taking advantage of student loans, particularly actually medical students, law degree students, so law students. They were using the student loans and then investing it into real estate, and then just not paying the loan. So they made some adjustments in those days to combat that fraud. And it kind of carried over to everyone. So everyone's stuck under that same boat. And then there's also the fact that a lot of student loans under the Affordable Care Act are now subsidized, and we can actually get into the consequences of that legislation and how it affected way more than just healthcare. It actually spilled over into the education system, which we're going to get into in the student loan data.
So something else before we even do that too, even if you find what you want to do or you don't know what you want to do, you don't have to go to college. For instance, you can pick up a trade. And even though this is easier said than done, you can start a business. There's multiple different other things you can do rather than go to college. But the point that I'm really trying to make here before we kind of dive into the Affordable Care Act and the debt that's and all of that is basically, if you decide to go to college, three things: minimize debt, make sure you know precisely what you want to do and set a game plan. And then three, maximize the university's resources. Maximize the university's resources. So, and I'll let Fabio take it away on this part.
Yeah, and I'd segue over us into the student loan data. So Affordable Care Act, Austin, was passed in what year?
2010.
2010. So exactly when it started to spike. I mean, you could say with 2009, there was the financial crisis, but you can even see the gradient here is pretty drastic. A gradient meaning slope or rate of change. The rate of change was pretty drastic for undergraduates. And basically the Affordable Care Act is essentially acted, part of it stipulated as a subsidy for education. That subsidy basically allowing anyone to then be able to not afford, but in theory, go to college. And supposedly that's a good thing. And what ends up happening is you have a lot more student debt, right? And the university, if you take an economics class, you understand supply and demand. So if demand rises in aggregate, you should see an increase in price because the price equilibrium is therefore rising. So, but that's not, this topic is not about the rising education costs in the United States. It's mainly just about the debt. I personally, this is anecdotal, so it's not, real evidence. Anecdotal evidence is not real evidence. It's just anecdotal. I knew a person who was a C student average, and they were able to acquire a tremendous amount of debt. And currently they are not working in a field that required university education. But they were able to, unfortunately, make a mistake because there was no consequence to the lender. The lender was being subsidized by the government. When there is no economic deterrent on the other end, like a consequence. So for example, I'm giving Austin money, and I know that if I don't invest in him properly, if he's not going to get a good degree and a solid job afterwards, he's not going to be able to pay me back. My incentive is to then not give him the money because I don't want to lose the money. If you take away this incentive, then there is no reason for me not to give Austin money. I don't care what he does. I don't care what degree he picks. I don't care what job he gets. I have zero interest in what Austin does. I am simply going to give him the loan and then take the subsidy from the government, because essentially in that case, we have eliminated the market forces enacting on the education system. Therefore, if you've taken, basic economics or macroeconomics, you would understand that you follow the theory of that, and it says it would predict education costs should rise exponentially in accordance with the subsidy. So that's kind of what we've been talking about. Now, let's kind of have some fun and look at some of the top majors.
So something too, and I kind of want to cut in here for a quick second, Fabio. Even if you decide to go to college, let's say even if you decide to go to college, there are cheaper alternatives, and it's called a community college. A community college typically offers an associate's and then sometimes the bachelor's. And it's usually they offer classes at a very, very low cost. So let's say that you live in a very expensive area. You could effectively go to community college, lower those costs, those opportunity costs that we were talking about. And then after 2 years, transfer to a university, and you would still have to pay those costs. But meanwhile, while you're there, you won't have to pay as much because the opportunity costs won't be as much as it would have been if you would have gone for 4 years, if that
Yeah.
makes sense what I'm trying to say, Fabio.
Well, and I'll add another thing. So there's a lot of programs depending on where you live. I think all of the states might have something similar, but they have something called dual enrollment, where you can enroll in the local community college or even the local state college, state university as a high school student, and it's entirely free. And it's actually up to you, however much you can handle in terms of course load. So you could, in theory, complete the entirety of the 4 years while in high school, if you wanted to, if you did, spring, summer, fall, and it's all free. It counts towards your public education budget. So a lot of people don't know that that's available to them. Obviously, not everyone can join those things. You got to have a certain criteria. I think there's an exam you have to pass, but they change the requirements here and there. So right here, Austin and I are going to take a look at some of the top degrees. So I think with the first one, we kind of say, okay, nursing makes good money. It's a necessity. They work in a hospital. It's a stable position in life. And then we have liberal arts.
Nice.
Right. So I don't know what you're doing with this degree. Maybe I'm just ignorant as to what liberal arts majors do, but I don't think they do much. I think you can go to like law school with that if you have a really high GPA. You can, because law school, you don't really need any kind of degree. It's just your LSAT and your GPA. Then you have business administration. I don't understand this major either. There's a lot of these guys. I don't really understand this major too much. I mean, I understand that it serves like literally, as the word says, business administration, but I think the best way to learn how to administer a business is to administer a business.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea what this means, general studies. You see like already right here of these, I just don't understand it. Psychology, I don't get that.
So Fabio,
we get the picture.
Just to kind of wrap this up.
Yeah.
just to kind of wrap this up today. What would be before I give my closing thoughts, what are some of your closing thoughts regarding just college in general? And is it kind of on par with what I say, where don't go to college yet until you know for a fact what you want to do? And then after that, maximize the resources your university has to offer while mitigating or even eliminating your debt?
Yeah, so I would say it all depends on the cost. So for example, let's say hypothetically, you have a full tuition paid for because you got a crazy good scholarship. Then there's no cost to you to attending college except for your time. Your time is valuable, but you're not digging yourself into a debt trap or a debt hole, right? It's paid for you. So you have a lot less to lose than someone who has to borrow the entirety of the tuition and wants to escape mommy and daddy because they don't want to be in the same state as mommy and daddy. That's silly. Right? Actually, that's a lot of people I encountered in my university was like, I think you might have seen this too, was people who are escaping
I did.
mommy and daddy and not, acting out of emotion. That's kind of a sign of immaturity, is just acting out of emotion, not thinking rationally. A lot of people go out of state when their state offers perfectly good universities for a lot less, but they just, again, want to go out and explore. Part of being adult is being mature, but then they think being adult is just being on your own. I mean, that's part of the...
Honestly, you can go out and you can leave the state after you graduate college, or not even go to college, and you won't even have it like half the amount of debt. So
I just, with a little bit of nuance, it just entirely depends on what it is you're trying to do. Yeah, that's it. It's my answer to that is it depends. It really does.
So we're actually going to just to wrap this up, we're actually going to release another video too, where we're going to kind of come up with a game plan of sorts of what someone who's going into college and wants to maximize their college's resources, what they should kind of know and take advantage of while they're in college. So this has been our very fine episode on college and student debt at the Capital Mindset Show. We're your hosts, Austin and Fabio. We hope that you've enjoyed what you've seen here today, and we hope that you like, comment, and subscribe. We'll see you guys later. Take care.